like-minded folks that are connected to the customer, all forms of customer. And today we're talking about a CX digital transformation, so customer experience digital transformation, and what that means for an organization. I'm very excited to have a good friend and actually former colleague of mine, Nishant Shah, who is the VP of Operational Strategy at the Simply Group. And we're going to talk lots about the Simply Group and their transformation over the last 3 to 5 years that Nishant's been leading, and excited to get into that. Today is definitely one that we are technology forward, and I want to thank our sponsors, Microsoft Dynamics team, Microsoft Dynamics 365. And so just a quick little note on Microsoft. Microsoft Canada and the Dynamics 365 team are fully focused on helping you stay connected to your customers and employees, especially in this time of rapid change. As part of our follow-up email, we'll be sending you a note to check out microsoft.com/together to download a resilience playbook as you continue to navigate serving your customers. So we'll look forward to for you guys to be able to see that. It's without further ado that I get to introduce Nishant Shah, who's had a great career working in all forms of consumer finance, technology, innovation, as well as the home services field across Canada. Specifically at the Simply Group, Nishant oversees their technology and customer experience back office support everywhere from installation through to, or lead through to installation through to financing. Over the last 5 years, the Simply Group has become one of Canada's leading home services firms, where they support Canadians across the country, and have grown from just over 2,000 clients a few years ago all the way up to well over 100,000 through several acquisitions, and have been growing pretty rapidly. So with that, I'd like to start my PowerPoint, and I will move over to letting Nishant introduce himself. So welcome, Nishant.
Hey guys, how's everyone? Yeah, just a quick introduction for me. I've been with the Simply Group for just over 4 years now, and like David mentioned, I'm currently, my role includes leading the technology portion of the business, and that includes sourcing of platforms and then taking it through from kind of the discovery phase all the way through to implementation, and then post-implementation support and enhancements as well. My background it has been within the home improvement industry, and then moving on to finance, and then I've used those experiences to kind of help Simply Group, especially from a technology standpoint, just based on my experiences. So yeah, that's a quick intro.
I love it, Nish. And maybe just to help us understand what the Simply Group does from like all the different parts. There's lots of different parts of the organization, but what's the best way that you think the listeners would want to know some background as we start to get into some of the nuance?
Yeah, so the main business for Simply Group is to do with providing home energy efficient solutions to homeowners. That's the main part of the business, and then the subsequent kind of secondary part, which has become fairly large now, is the financing end of the business, where we're able to finance a furnace or a water heater, as an example, and be able to do that internally rather than using a third-party bank. And so we have that finance arm as well. Over and above that, we also have a LED business, which does commercial LED retrofit, and a sub-metering business, which is to do with sub-meters in condos and rental apartment buildings for electricity and their water. So that kind of is the overall overview of Simply Group.
I think it's a great, some great context, because I think the varied nature of customer interactions, when you think about that, everywhere from, again, we talked about lead generation through to dispatching and managing cases and installations, through to equipment and servicing repairs, and then finally into financing, essentially serving as a financial institution. So a lot of different client interactions, which I think just sort of really lend to some of the diversity of sort of programming and development that you need to have. So as we mentioned before, over the last few years, you guys have grown sort of over the 100,000 mark and serving across Canada, just under $1 billion in assets. And I wanted to see if you could maybe give an overview of what that technology expansion, sort of where you guys started and sort of where it's gotten you to today. And then down in a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about where you're going, but maybe just a little bit about the your current setup and how you got there.
Yeah, so when I first joined, there was a platform that was kind of an in-house platform being used from a CRM perspective, which tracked all the customers, the assets, and the the installation and the service aspect of the business. But it wasn't scalable. It was pretty archaic, and there were quite a few issues with it. So at that point, a few years ago, we decided to go down the route of Microsoft Dynamics. So we got the first instance back in 2017, where we converted all our existing data, put it into the Dynamics platform. But what we decided back then was to do a server-based application rather than the cloud-based, and we weren't able to do the enhancements that we wanted to be able to scale the business as we started bringing on these acquisitions in. So what we decided about 2 years ago is to go cloud-based, and that's where my involvement got fairly heavy into this project. And what we did was we went cloud-based just because of the ability to scale the platform, just along with our business needs. And what we've done is, post kind of implementation of the cloud-based system, we've also added additional modules to the platform, with the recent one being about 2 months ago, where we added the field service module, which is extremely critical when we are talking about installation and service of a piece of equipment. So we've done that recently, and we've seen massive efficiencies within our departments, just because it's more visual. It also allows for technicians to have access online on their phone to accept jobs and give us live status updates. So we've done that, and then in terms of where we're going is to just expand it further, add a marketing engine, add a customer experience engine to it. So we have a whole holistic CRM platform that manages the customer from start to finish. Sorry, David, can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm mute. You see, you're keeping me on track, even even when I'm supposed to be keeping you on track. I just want to probe in there because there was that sort of a fairly important design decision of saying, hey, we were server based and now we're going cloud based. Whether you inherited that server based decision or not, how difficult was it to make the business case change and then subsequently to make the migration? Like, how did that sort of, what's the story behind that move?
So the business case was made when we actually hired an expert on Dynamics, and he kind of started going into the server-based application and was able to put through a plan on how we can, why we should upgrade it to the cloud-based and what the benefits would be and an ROI, right? Because in the end, that matters. And it quickly became apparent that if we didn't go to the cloud-based system, we were not going to be able to scale the way we wanted to from a business perspective. So it was a fairly easy decision once it was kind of visual in front of us that, hey, server-based has these kind of issues with it and and restrictions. Whereas if we go cloud-based, just the number of modules you can add, the ease of making changes to a cloud-based system from a customization perspective is just so much easier. And the user experience is way better as well. So that kind of made it fairly easy to make that decision. And then in terms of the project of getting it off the ground and moving from server to cloud-based, it took us, I'm going to say, approximately about a 6-month time frame from day one discovery to go live. And obviously, there was a lot of work involved within that in terms of making sure that the design elements that we wanted were being put in. And also, the most critical part was the data was getting transferred from a server base to a cloud base, that we didn't lose any data, and the data integrity was there once we went live with the cloud base. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it does. And I guess as you were thinking through that sort of 6-month journey, like, was there an impact or a lift or no change from the customer perspective in terms of, like, with that, because it's fairly, when you think about the agents that are interacting with the system, it's not going direct to consumer. It's sort of within your team that would be accessing it. But did it help or enhance the customer experience in any particular way as you moved?
Once we went to the cloud-based, yes, like certain elements got better in terms of servicing a customer, because the information available was easier compared to the server base. We could put certain elements on one page rather than, going through 4 pages to get information. So that enhancement happened and allowed for definitely a better customer experience. And then we were able to further enhance the platform by making minor, field level customizations, let's call it, which was way easier on the cloud base compared to the server base. So yes, customer experience did enhance significantly by going to cloud base.
Gotcha. And so then jumping into the recent sort of move to the field operations module, what was the plan and the path in terms of the thinking? Like, was it difficult to get buy-in from different folks? Like, what was the process in which you went through to make that change?
So when we initially kind of decided to go cloud-based, we had already made a decision to get field service added to the platform. It's just that we needed to do it in phases. One was kind of move from server to cloud, and then once we get into cloud, now let's add the module for field service, because it did change all our business processes when it came to the actual installation and service of a customer. Just based on the enhancement that a field service module has in it. But it was all part of the initial plan when it was presented that, hey, if we're going to do this cloud-based platform, then we need to look at the field service module, because currently we don't have anything that can match what field service would give us. So it was part of the plan and part of the analysis that we did initially, even from a pricing perspective. So it was all approved right up front when we decided to go cloud.
And so as you went through that, you keep talking about a we. What's the makeup of your team look like? And as you launched into these, so you've got a base platform, working through the core. You're adding extensions. You're making changes. What does that team look like?
So the core team that managed this is about 5 people, including myself. But from a decision standpoint, and getting inputs, we took all the input from various department leaders, as well as, I'll call them team leaders within those departments that use CRM on a daily basis, to get their input so we can build a robust platform. And then all of these folks were involved from a testing perspective, so that when we went live, they already knew, what they wanted is what they got. Yes, not everything, but most of it. And so when we went live, there was no kind of surprise as to, hey, why is this happening this way? Like there was a whole plan built from both a design perspective, testing perspective, and then go live to ensure all team members for all departments were involved in this conversation.
Very good. I want to jump forward to then look back, of saying, imagine you've now launched this lead, which you have, and you've got some additional plans to expand. As you look back, what are the things you wish you had done differently, or what were the things? And the second part of the question is, what would you definitely do again as you start to move forward?
If I think about what I wouldn't do, there isn't too many major kind of areas where I would say, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, there might have been some additional testing time. That would be one of the areas where maybe we should have spent, more than the time we allocated, just to get everything, more closer to perfection than we did. Because there's not quite a bit, but there was items post go live that we needed to fix kind of day 1 through day 7. just because you start using the system, you find out certain areas that need some additional enhancement. But I wish we did that initially, just for a smoother transition. But none that were massive issues. And then what I would do again is the part where we involved all the teams, all the various teams, in this project, because it was more company wide. It wasn't just for a particular department. So that was critical, and we involved them right from the get go, right from discovery all the way through. So that part I would repeat 100%, because it gives you better insight and you're able to make better decisions to build a platform.
In terms of some of the the sticking points, were there things that took you longer, like even though they were going through their data, hey, these were some areas that would be areas that I would spend a little bit more energy on or thinking through?
Yeah, so data is always big. So 100% on that aspect. If we, I would say a little bit more, put a little bit more rigor into it, just from a cleanup perspective. Other than that, the only other thing would be we were in a time constraint, so that's one of the issues we ran into. But I would say a little bit more research if we had done in terms of the various features that are available within the platform. I think we would have been a little bit further ahead on day of launch. We are there now because we understand it better, but that's the area that I would think.
I think there's a great quote of I think it was Reed Hastings from LinkedIn. I think that might have said it, but it's like if you launch and you're really proud of what you've launched, sometimes you've launched too slowly, and so there's always going to be glitches and bugs to fix. But I think it's about having that sort of whatever that 60 or 80% there is the goal.
Correct.
As you start thinking through the go forward, you mentioned some of the additional modules, but how are you thinking it from a customer experience? Like, what are the plans to use the platform to try and enhance a customer's experience through the platform? Like, what's the approach?
Yeah, so there's quite a few modules that are available currently from a customer experience standpoint, where you can add scripting right on CRM. You can add tools where in our side it's more sales, right? Like we're a sales-based organization, to provide information to an upfront agent on what equipment the customer has and what the possibility of upgrading or adding an additional equipment. Like those features we currently don't have. So those are the areas that we're looking at in terms of how do we enhance it. And scripting is important, right? Because that helps the agent kind of with the conversation with the customer. And then the other thing would be just the ability to flag customers that are, I would call it, you have your gold customer, your silver, and whatever the tiered rating would be. Flag those so that we can serve them a little bit differently. Just like Amex has the black card, kind of same kind of concept is the ability to be able to do that by providing that information to an agent right up front on the platform, which we don't have currently.
Gotcha. And when you start to look at those plans, like how do you plan for that going forward in terms of are you trying to wait for the business strategy to figure out? I know you guys continue to grow through acquisition, which sort of slows down. If you're trying to sort of continue to grow in different ways, it slows down your core map. But how are you doing that mapping process?
So we're looking towards the business leaders to come up with their requirements. And then we're making decisions as a team, and it's the senior leadership team that makes a decision on what are we going to do when, based on the requirements that have been gathered and a potential solution being available to it. So we get the requirements from the business leaders, we look for the solution, and then we come up with the costing, et cetera, and timeline. And then we decide, we present it to the senior leadership team, who then we together make a decision on priority of what we're going to do when.
I'm going to start Oh, I'm on mute again. I wanted to sort of put it out to the group if we start to we've got a few more questions to go through with Nish, but if there's folks that would like to throw some questions into the chat or specific things that you're looking to understand as we sort of see someone Nish sort of giving the case study of what does it mean to develop the technology that supports the growth of a customer experience perspective. Looking to get any questions from the group. Some of the additional questions I had in terms of we spent a lot of time training. Can you tell me a little bit about how you rolled it out, all this change from a training perspective and brought people into the direction that you were going?
Yeah, so we have a training lead in the organization that was involved through the design process. So she started creating all the training materials right from the get-go. As soon as we would have a sign off on a certain portion, she would go in and create the training module for it. And then what we ended up doing was dividing and conquering. I had a couple of team members on my team that are able to train as well. We have an organization of, I think it's about 100, 120 people we needed to train in a short period of time. So essentially, once all the modules were created, we did pre-COVID and in-class training. And then as part of the in-class training, we also gave them access to the sandbox environment to actually do test cases so that they get familiar with the system. And then we got their feedback. We made sure if someone was not up to par, they would go into a secondary training session. And that's how we ran it all the way through. And then post-launch, day of launch, and the week of launch, we had the 3 people available on standby to provide support, and we ran a refresher training at the end of the first week.
Perfect. No, it sounds pretty robust from that perspective to be able to build it. You mentioned COVID, so I guess we still are living in a pandemic environment. Hopefully, I was reading the news this morning for those who are in Ontario. I think where Nish and I are both located, we might go back down into some more restrictions based on everyone's silliness. But what was it like for the team as you guys have moved over the last few months and adapted to a new environment? What happened at the Simply Group when the pandemic sort of started to strike?
So essentially, it was kind of a flip of a switch. One day you're in the office, the next day you're working from home. We're obviously a Microsoft shop, so Teams has been our platform. And we were able to switch overnight to working from home, and everyone adapted really well. We had next to no issues in terms of people being able to log in, etc., and be able to do their function. We prepped a few days ahead of time as we knew the day that we're going to switch over to work from home. So made sure everyone had their access and hardware, etc. But yeah, it went extremely smooth. We had next to no issues.
That's great. That's great. No, it's we've heard different stories in ours. We've done a bunch of spotlight interviews over the last for some of the people who are listening in have been in part of those over the last few months. And some organizations flipped a switch, and some organizations took a little more switches to flip to get where they needed to get to as navigated the pandemic. I want to jump back into we had a question that was popping on the chat, which was around how do you measure individual performance within your instance. So I guess it's like, how are you measuring? Is it at the agent level? Are there being able to see error rates or mistakes, or are you able to track the work that they're doing? Like how do you track performance?
So we have a QE team, quality excellence team that audits a certain percentage of everyone's work. Doesn't matter what department, sales, adjudication, install, service, and we get their quality assurance scores. And we obviously have a threshold that they need to hit above that. If they fall below it, then they go into a refresher training session. But we have a whole program set up from a quality perspective to measure their performance.
Gotcha. And just on that QA team, are they looking at audio, or are they looking at the actual files themselves as they go through?
It's both. We do audio as well as the actual file within CRM. We also have the audit feature enabled on CRM. So the fields that we do want to monitor, there's an audit log that comes out that the QE team has access to, and they use that as a base to kind of do their analysis.
Perfect. That's great. I'm keeping it. I see a few more questions popping in, and I guess as a few more pop in, I just want to ask, as you look forward, and this is maybe, and we've got folks on the call who are either in the middle of these transformations or thinking about it. If you had 3 pieces of advice to give, 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece, whatever you think, en route to a CX transformation, like what would you suggest for folks to be thinking about at a high level or a very tactical level?
The biggest thing that I would say that's extremely important is you need to know your business and the processes inside out in order to do a transformation like this, because if you don't, you're going to miss some critical components. So definitely, knowing your business, your workflows, and your processes is extremely important, because that allows you to build a platform that can support the business. Number 2, take enough time, when it comes to discovery sessions, to provide all the information in the right format to the developers, because they don't understand the business. You might be lucky enough that they might. We were, because we'd worked with them for several years when we went through this transformation. And number 3, testing, right? Like, make sure your testing is robust. Build out your test cases ahead of time and run them through several times, because it's important to make sure that all these test cases pass, because that'll give you enough confidence to go live. So those would be the 3.
I think great advice, and I think maybe we leave on a high note, an aspiration. We'll leave it there. And Nish, I want to say thanks for taking the time to join us. I also want to thank Microsoft, who's continued to help us work with clients across the country, and as we work and help them as they launch. We'll be sending out a good ebook afterwards, or a link to download at microsoft.com/together. And but Nish, I know you're busy. You guys are leading the charge in different ways. It's always nice to get someone's perspective who is leading the charge, not necessarily someone like myself who's on the outside advising back in. So we appreciate your time today, and wish you a healthy fall.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Nish. We'll be signing off, everyone. Have a great day.